A brilliant flash of blue light illuminated the void of space as the UES Thunderchild emerged from hyperspace, its sleek hull gleaming under distant starlight. The massive human warship's sensors immediately detected the chaos unfolding before them, a scene that would forever change the course of galactic history. Captain Jin-Woo Park stood tall on the bridge, his experienced eyes taking in the holographic display that painted a grim picture. 6 warships of the Stellar Dominion, their distinctive crimson hulls marking them as attackers, were methodically destroying the orbital defenses of the peaceful Koran civilization. "Report," Jin-Woo commanded, his calm voice masking the growing tension in his chest. First Officer Da-Hyun Lee quickly responded, "Sir, we're detecting multiple energy signatures. The Stellar Dominion fleet is targeting civilian installations. The Koran defense grid is almost completely destroyed." The bridge crew watched in horror as another orbital station exploded, its fragments raining down toward the azure planet below. The Koran people, known throughout the galaxy for their artistic achievements and peaceful nature, had never developed significant military capabilities. "Life signs on the remaining stations?" Jin-Woo asked, his fingers drumming thoughtfully on the command chair's armrest. "Hundreds, sir," Communications Officer Mae-Yun reported, her voice tight with concern. "We're picking up distress signals in multiple languages." Jin-Woo's mind raced through the diplomatic implications. The Thunderchild was the first human vessel to venture this far into unexplored space. They had no formal relations with either the Stellar Dominion or the Korans. Standing protocols suggested avoiding conflict with unknown species. But as he watched another civilian station take a direct hit, Jin-Woo knew there was only one choice. "Lieutenant Hae-Nul Kim, weapons status," he ordered, standing up from his chair. "All railguns charged and ready, sir. Missile tubes loaded with standard payload. Point defense grid at full capacity." Hae-Nul responded without hesitation. Jin-Woo turned to his tactical officer. "Show me their weak points." The holographic display shifted, highlighting structural vulnerabilities in the Dominion vessels. Their ships were impressive, sleek, powerful, and clearly designed for intimidation. But Jin-Woo noticed something interesting. They relied heavily on energy shields and had relatively light armor. "Sir," Chief Engineer Sun Young Choi spoke up from her station, "their shield configuration suggests they've never faced railgun technology. They're optimized for energy weapons." A small smile crossed Jin-Woo's face. Human warships were different, built tough, with layers of armor and redundant systems. The Thunderchild might be outnumbered, but they had surprise on their side. "All hands, battle stations," Jin-Woo announced shipwide. "Engineering, divert power to forward shields and weapon systems. Communications, broadcast on all frequencies in standard galactic code. This is Captain Jin-Woo Park of the UES Thunderchild. Cease your attack on civilian targets immediately or face the consequences." The response came quickly, a barrage of energy weapons from the nearest Dominion vessel. The shots dissipated harmlessly against the Thunderchild's shields. "Well," Jin-Woo said quietly, "they've made their choice." He squared his shoulders and gave the order that would echo through history. "Target the nearest vessel. Show them how humans fight." The Thunderchild's main railguns roared to life, launching hypervelocity rounds that crossed the space between ships in seconds. The Dominion vessel's shields, designed to stop energy weapons, provided little protection against solid projectiles moving at relativistic speeds. The rounds tore through their hull like paper. "Direct hits," Hae-Nul announced. "Enemy vessel's power core is destabilizing." The bridge crew watched as the first Dominion ship exploded, its destruction causing visible confusion among the remaining attackers. Their formation broke apart as they tried to regroup against this unexpected threat. "They're targeting us with everything they have," Da-Hyun reported. "Evasive pattern Delta," Jin-Woo commanded. "Rotate shield frequencies. Launch missile spread, pattern Thunder 3. The Thunderchild moved with surprising agility for its size, its human crew working in perfect coordination. Missiles streaked from its launch tubes, splitting into multiple warheads that overwhelmed the Dominion ship's point defense systems. The battle lasted less than 20 minutes. When it was over, 3 Dominion ships were destroyed, 2 were crippled and retreating, and 1 had surrendered. The Thunderchild, while damaged, remained combat effective, a testament to human engineering and determination. As emergency teams began helping the Corran survivors, Jin Wu received a message from the planet below. The Corran Council expressed their profound gratitude and asked a question that would become famous throughout the galaxy. Who are these humans who fight like warriors but protect like guardians? Jin Wu looked out at the stars, knowing that word of this battle would spread quickly. Humanity had announced its presence in the galaxy not through conquest or aggression, but by standing up for those who couldn't defend themselves. Send a message to Earth Command, he told Myray. First contact established with 2 species. Request diplomatic teams and additional support vessels. He paused, then added, and tell them they should prepare for a galaxy that's about to become very interested in humanity. The Thunderchild's actions that day would indeed echo across the stars, marking the beginning of humanity's reputation as fearsome warriors who fought not for conquest, but for justice. The legend of the Deathbringers had begun. The soft blue glow of holographic displays cast dancing shadows across senior analyst Yoon Jae-lee's face as she studied the footage for what felt like the 100th time. The small office aboard the Corran Defense Station had become her second home over the past week, its walls covered in data readouts and tactical analyses. She rubbed her tired eyes, but couldn't look away from the images before her. The battle that had saved her people played out again in perfect detail. The human warship Thunderchild emerging from hyperspace like an ancient guardian spirit, its intervention changing everything they thought they knew about space warfare. Play section 47 again, she commanded the computer. The hologram flickered, showing the moment when 3 stellar Dominion energy beams struck the Thunderchild's port side. Freeze image. Yoon Jae leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. Enhance grid section C12. What she saw challenged everything she'd learned in her 20 years as a military analyst. Where Dominion ships would have suffered catastrophic shield collapse, the Thunderchild's layered defenses absorbed and distributed the impact. Even more fascinating was what happened next. Resume playback. Quarter speed. The human ship's response was unlike anything in the Corran military database. Instead of retreating to restore shields, as Dominion doctrine demanded, the Thunderchild turned into the attack. Its damaged armor plates became improvised weapons, deliberately shed to confuse enemy targeting systems. A soft chime announced the arrival of her research partner. Chief Engineer Min Soo Kang entered the office, carrying 2 cups of steaming beverages. Still at it? He asked, setting 1 cup beside her. It's well past midnight station time. Yoon-ji accepted the drink gratefully. Look at this, she pointed to a new section of footage. They're damage control teams. See how they move. Min Soo leaned in, his expert eyes catching what she'd noticed. They're not following standard emergency protocols. Each team, they're adapting to the situation in real time. Exactly. Yoon-ji pulled up comparison data from Dominion ship designs. Every other spacefaring race we know relies heavily on automated systems and preset responses. But humans. She gestured at another screen showing the Thunderchild's internal layout. Their ships are different from the core up. Multiple redundant systems, manual overrides everywhere, and crew stations positioned to allow rapid response to any section. Min Soo nodded slowly. They build their ships expecting to take damage, not just to survive it, but to keep fighting through it. More than that, Yoon-ji brought up the ship's crew manifest. Look at their training requirements. Every crew member cross-trains in multiple roles. If one section becomes unable to function, others can take over. She stood up and walked to the large viewing window, looking out at the stars. The stellar Dominion ships they'd salvaged after the battle floated in the distance, their sleek designs a stark contrast to the practical functionality of human engineering. The Dominion built their ships to project power, she said thoughtfully. all flash and intimidation. But humans, they built theirs to endure. Min Su joined her at the window. The council wants your preliminary report tomorrow. What are you going to tell them? Yoonji was quiet for a moment, organizing her thoughts. That we've been looking at space warfare all wrong. The Dominion thinks victory comes from superior technology and overwhelming force. But the humans showed us something different. She turned back to her desk, bringing up the final moments of the battle. The Thunderchild, despite taking damage that would have destroyed any other ship, continued to fight with undiminished effectiveness. They don't just survive, she murmured. They adapt. Every hit they take teaches them something new. Every battle makes them stronger. Min Su reviewed her notes on human ship design. Their approach to engineering reflects their entire philosophy. Multiple layers of defense, backup systems for their backup systems, and crew quarters designed to maintain morale during extended conflicts. It's not just about the technology, Yoonji added. Their crew training, their tactical doctrine, even their ship design. It all works together. They've created something entirely new. She began composing her report to the council. The Dominion failed to understand what they were facing. They saw a single ship and thought they had numerical superiority. They didn't realize that human warships are built to face exactly those odds and win. The implications were profound. The Korean Defense Force would need to completely rethink their approach to space warfare. But more importantly, they needed to understand their new allies better. One more thing, Yoonji said, making a final note. Recommend to the council that we formally request human assistance in redesigning our defense fleet. We need to learn from them. As she finished her analysis, Yoonji realized that the ripples from this single battle would change more than just military doctrine. The humans had shown the galaxy a new way of thinking about survival, adaptation, and the true meaning of strength. The stars seemed to shine a little brighter that night, as if they too understood that a new era had begun. One where the old rules no longer applied, and where humanity's unique approach to warfare would reshape the galaxy's understanding of what it meant to be truly powerful. The stars near Proxima shone silently in the void as Admiral Sun Ho stood on the bridge of her flagship, the UES Invincible, her weathered face reflected in the tactical display as she studied the incoming enemy fleet. 30 red dots marked the approach of the stellar Dominion Armada, each one representing a warship intent on humanity's destruction. Status report, she commanded, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. Captain Jai-Ho Lee responded from his station. All 12 ships in position, Admiral. The Dominion fleet will enter weapons range in 17 minutes. Sun He nodded, her mind already several steps ahead. The Invincible led a defensive line of human warships spread across the Proxima system's outer edge. Behind them lay 3 human colony worlds, millions of innocent lives depending on their protection. Open fleet-wide channel, she ordered. The communications officer complied with a quick nod. This is Admiral Cho to all ships, she began, her words carrying to every crew member in the fleet. The enemy believes their superior numbers guarantee victory. They see 12 ships against 30 and think the outcome is certain. Today we show them why they're wrong. She turned to her tactical officer. Begin Operation Thunderstorm. All ships, execute attack pattern Delta 7. The human fleet broke formation with practiced precision. Instead of maintaining a static defensive line as the Dominion expected, the 12 ships split into 4 groups of 3, each taking different vectors. Dominion fleet is adjusting course, Tactical reported. They're trying to maintain their numerical advantage by staying grouped. Sun Hai allowed herself a small smile. Just as expected. Launch our first wave of drones. Hundreds of small, unmanned craft streamed from the human ship's launch base. The Dominion fleet responded with point defense fire, but these weren't ordinary attack drones. As they were destroyed, each one released a cloud of sensor-jamming particles. Sensor web established, Captain Lee announced. Enemy targeting systems are degrading. The Dominion fleet's neat formation began to waver as their ships lost reliable sensor data. Their superior numbers meant nothing if they couldn't coordinate effectively. All ships, commence attack runs, Sun He commanded. Remember your training. Hit and fade. Make them chase shadows. The human vessels demonstrated why they were feared across the galaxy. The UES Valiant struck first, its railguns punching through a Dominion cruiser's shields before disappearing into the sensor chaos. The UES Defiant and UES Intrepid attacked from different vectors seconds later, forcing the enemy to divide their attention. Enemy fleet is breaking into smaller groups, Tactical reported. They're trying to clear the sensor interference. Exactly what we wanted, Sun He said. Execute Phase 2. The human ships began their real attack. Years of drilling and training paid off as each three-ship squadron operated in perfect coordination. They struck from multiple angles, using the sensor-clouded environment to multiply their apparent numbers. The Dominion captains, trained to rely on superior technology and overwhelming force, found themselves fighting an enemy they couldn't properly track or predict. Their energy weapons flashed through space, hitting nothing but sensor ghosts. "Sir," Tactical called out. 5 enemy ships confirmed destroyed, 3 more showing critical damage. The battle continued for hours. The human ships darted in and out of sensor range, striking vulnerable points with precision before vanishing again. The Dominion fleet's numerical advantage became a disadvantage as ships fired on sensor contacts that turned out to be their own allies. Sun He watched the tactical display with intense focus, coordinating the battle like a conductor leading an orchestra of destruction. Her ships took damage. That was inevitable. But human engineering meant they could fight on despite their injuries. UES Dauntless reporting heavy damage. Communications announced. Captain Song requests permission to withdraw. Denied, Sun He responded. Tell Dauntless to execute Protocol Omega-3. The damaged human ship turned its wounds into an advantage, venting plasma from its damaged systems to create additional sensor interference. It became a ghost ship, appearing and disappearing at will, drawing enemy fire away from its companions. After 6 hours of combat, the outcome became clear. The mighty Dominion fleet was in ruins. 18 of their ships were destroyed or crippled, and the remainder had lost all unit cohesion. Enemy fleet is retreating, Tactical confirmed. They're making for their jump points. Sun He watched the red dots fade from her display. The human fleet had suffered damage. 3 ships would need extensive repairs, but they had achieved what the Dominion had thought impossible. Send word to command, she ordered. The Proxima colonies are secure. And add this. Tell them the Dominion just learned why human ships are different. We don't just build them to win battles. We build them to win wars. As the human fleet regrouped to protect their wounded, Sun He knew this battle would be remembered, not just for the victory against overwhelming odds, but for what it proved to the galaxy. Humanity's strength lay not in numbers or technology, but in their ability to adapt, coordinate, and overcome any challenge. The Battle of Proxima had shown why human warships were feared. They weren't just vessels of war. They were extensions of humanity's indomitable spirit. Chief Historian Tadwan Kang's fingers moved swiftly across his data terminal, organizing the flood of information from the Battle of Proxima. His office in the Galactic Archives was filled with holographic displays showing ship movements, damage reports, and crew testimonials from both sides of the conflict. A gentle chime announced the arrival of his research assistant, Min Jiquan. She carried a data crystal containing the latest interviews with captured Dominion officers. "You need to hear this," she said, inserting the crystal into the reader. The voice of a Dominion fleet commander filled the room. "We thought we understood warfare." The alien voice trembled slightly. "Our tactical simulations showed 12 ships could not survive against 30. But the humans, they fought differently. Their ships moved like living things, protecting each other, adapting to our attacks." Taiwan leaned back in his chair, stroking his chin thoughtfully. "Play the next segment." Another voice, this time a Dominion engineering chief. Their ship names confused us at first. Invincible, Valiant, Defiant. We thought they were just words. We didn't understand they were naming them after concepts that define their very nature. Stop playback, Taiwan commanded. He pulled up the historical database of human ship names. Each one told a story. Leonidas, named for an ancient warrior who died protecting his people. Thermopylae, a battle where the few stood against the many. Achilles, a legendary hero known for both strength and vulnerability. Look at this pattern, he showed Minji the display. Every human warship carries the weight of their history. These aren't just names, they're promises. He brought up footage from the battle's crucial moment. The UES Dauntless, heavily damaged and venting atmosphere, had turned back into the fight to protect a wounded companion. The ship's actions perfectly matched the meaning of its name. Their ship names are more than identification codes, Minji realized. They're reminders of what it means to be human. Taiwan nodded, adding notes to his report. The Dominion's mistake was thinking that superior numbers and technology determined the outcome of battles. They never considered the power of legacy and tradition. He pulled up more battle footage, showing how human ships worked together. When one was damaged, others would move to protect it. When victory seemed impossible, they fought harder instead of retreating. Each ship, he wrote, carries not just weapons and crew, but the accumulated wisdom of thousands of years of human warfare. Their tactics reflect lessons learned in ancient battles fought on land, sea, and air. A message notification flashed on his screen. More reports had arrived, this time from neutral species who had observed the battle from afar. Their analyses all shared a common theme: astonishment at the humans' coordinated fighting style. The Dominion expected them to break formation when outnumbered, Taiwan read aloud. Instead, the human ships drew closer together, strengthening each other. Like a family facing danger, not a military unit. Minji brought up the casualty reports. Despite the overwhelming odds, the human fleet had survived largely intact. Not because their ships were stronger, but because they protected each other with unwavering dedication. There's something else, she said, highlighting a section of data. Look at the crew responses during the battle. When ships were damaged, crew members from different sections would rotate duties, adapting to maintain combat effectiveness. Taiwan added this to his growing analysis. The human approach to space warfare was unique in the galaxy. While other species built their ships to dominate through power, humans built theirs to endure, adapt, and protect. Their ships reflect their values, he wrote. Courage, sacrifice, loyalty, adaptability. Each vessel is designed not just to fight, but to embody these principles. He stood and walked to the window overlooking the archive's vast data storage facilities. Somewhere in those banks of information, histories of countless space battles were stored, but none quite like this. The legend will grow, he said softly. Other species will study this battle, trying to understand how 12 ships defeated 30. Some will copy human technology, others their tactics. But they'll miss the true lesson. Which is? Minji asked. That human ships are feared not because of their weapons or armor, but because they carry the spirit of humanity itself. Each one is a testament to their history, their determination, and their unwavering will to protect what they value. Taiwan returned to his terminal, beginning the conclusion of his report. The Battle of Proxima would be remembered not just as a military victory, but as the moment the galaxy truly began to understand humanity. They named their ships after ancient warriors, he wrote, because they carry forward the same principles that guided their ancestors. Perhaps we should have recognized the significance sooner. These aren't just warships. They're guardians of human values, protectors of the weak, and living proof that the strength of the few can overcome the power of the many. As he finished his report, Taiwan knew that future generations would study this battle. They would learn not just about human military prowess, but about the spirit that made their ships legends in the vastness of space. Through the crackling holographic displays of the UES Leonidas, Commander Jai-Yun Song watched the approaching enemy dreadnoughts grow larger. Warning lights flashed across every console, and the ship's damage control systems fought to maintain what little power remained after their last engagement. "Status report," Jai-Yun called out, her voice steadied despite the dire situation. Lieutenant Minho Park responded from the engineering station, his uniform stained with coolant from emergency repairs. "Main reactor at 31%. Life support failing on decks 3 through 7. We have partial weapons power, but our shields are gone." The bridge crew worked at their stations, each knowing these might be their final moments. The Leonidas had been ambushed while protecting a civilian evacuation fleet. They'd succeeded in getting the civilians to safety, but at a terrible cost. 3 Dominion dreadnoughts, closing fast, reported Tactical Officer Seo Jin Choi. "They're moving to surround us." Jai-Yun studied the tactical display, her mind racing through options. The Leonidas was a destroyer, smaller than the massive dreadnoughts bearing down on them. But she remembered her history. The ship's namesake had faced similar odds at Thermopylae. "All hands." She keyed the ship-wide communication system. "This is the commander. We are damaged but not defeated. We are the shield that protects the innocent. Like our namesake, we stand against overwhelming odds." She turned to her weapons officer. "How many missiles do we have left?" 3 volleys, Commander. "And 2 railguns are still operational." Jai-Yun nodded, a plan forming in her mind. "Engineering, can you give us one last burst of emergency power?" Minho's hands flew across his console. "Yes, Commander. But it will burn out what's left of our systems. We'll have no power after that." "Understood." Jai-Yun stood from her command chair, addressing her crew directly. "The Dominion thinks we're finished. They expect us to surrender or try to escape. Instead, we're going to show them why human ships are feared across the galaxy." The enemy vessels moved into attack formation, their energy weapons powered up, ready to deliver the killing blow to the crippled human ship. "All hands, battle stations," Jai-Yun ordered. "Prepare for close-quarters combat." The crew responded with practiced efficiency, even as parts of the ship lost atmosphere. They had trained for this, prepared for this moment when everything else was stripped away except their determination. "Enemy ships are charging weapons," Seo Jin reported. Jai-Yun's voice was calm as she gave the order. "Execute attack pattern Leonidas." The damaged destroyer suddenly surged forward on its remaining engines, heading straight for the center dreadnought. The enemy vessels hesitated, confused by this seemingly suicidal charge. "Launch all remaining missiles," Jai-Yun commanded. "Target their shield generators." The Leonidas's missile tubes emptied in a final salvo. The dreadnought's point defense systems struggled to track the incoming weapons through the debris field the destroyer was leaving in its wake. Multiple impacts rocked the enemy vessels. Their shields flickered but held. However, the missiles had served their real purpose, forcing the dreadnoughts to adjust their shield coverage. "Emergency power ready," Minho reported. "Now," Jai-Yun ordered, "all power to engines and remaining weapons." The Leonidas lurched forward with sudden speed, its damaged hull groaning under the strain. Before the enemy could react, the destroyer had closed to point-blank range. "Fire railguns. Target their exposed shield generators." The destroyer's remaining railguns fired, their hypervelocity rounds striking with devastating accuracy. The center dreadnought's shields collapsed, leaving it vulnerable. "Ram them," Jai-Yun commanded, her voice firm. The Leonidas slammed into the much larger vessel, its reinforced bow crumpling, but achieving its purpose. The impact sent both ships spinning, creating chaos in the enemy formation. "Overload the reactor," Jai-Yun ordered. "Vent plasma through the breach." Superheated plasma from the destroyer's dying reactor poured into the wounded dreadnought. Secondary explosions chained through the massive vessel's hull. The other 2 dreadnoughts tried to maneuver away, but found themselves caught in their own companion's destruction. The explosion of the first dreadnought triggered a cascade of failures in their tightly packed formation. "Abandon ship," Jai-Yun ordered, even as she remained at her post. "All hands to escape pods." The crew hesitated for just a moment, looking at their commander with respect and understanding. Then they moved to their evacuation stations, knowing their commander would ensure their escape. Jai-Yun watched as the escape pods launched, carrying her crew to safety. The Leonidas, true to its name, had become the shield that protected not just the civilian fleet, but now its own crew. As the bridge systems failed around her, Jai-Yun smiled. 3 enemy dreadnoughts destroyed by a single crippled destroyer. The galaxy would remember this day. The rescue ships would arrive hours later, finding the debris field of 4 destroyed vessels and a collection of escape pods. They would also find Commander Jai-Yun Song, barely alive in the remains of her bridge, having guided her ship's destruction to protect the pod's escape. The last stand of the Leonidas became legend, taught in military academies across human space. It proved that even a mortally wounded human warship remained deadly, and that the spirit of its crew mattered more than the strength of its weapons. Most importantly, it showed why human ships were truly feared, not for their power to destroy, but for their unwavering determination to protect, even at the cost of their own destruction. The observation deck of Peace Station Alpha floated silently in neutral space, its large windows offering a clear view of the massive UES Guardian anchored nearby. Peace negotiator Min-Ho Choi watched as the Stellar Dominion representatives entered the room, their eyes repeatedly drawn to the human warship outside. The lead diplomat, High Speaker Valen, settled into his seat across from Min-Ho. The alien's iridescent scales shifted color slightly, a sign of nervousness that Min-Ho had learned to recognize during his years of diplomatic service. "The Guardian's presence makes you uncomfortable," Min-Ho observed, pouring tea into delicate cups for both parties. Valen's assistant shifted in his seat. "We requested a neutral meeting ground. The presence of a human warship seems provocative." Min-Ho smiled gently, sliding a cup toward each diplomat. "The Guardian is here to protect all of us, not to threaten. Notice how it's positioned to defend the station from any direction, not just from your approach vector." The Dominion representatives exchanged glances, considering this observation. Outside, the Guardian maintained its vigilant position, its hull bearing the scars of recent battles, but still proud and strong. "We have studied the records of our conflicts," Valen said, carefully lifting the teacup with his 3-fingered hand, "particularly the Battle of Proxima and the last stand of the Leonidas. We thought we understood warfare, but your ships, they behave differently." Min-Ho nodded, encouraging the diplomat to continue. "Our fleets are built for conquest," Valen admitted. "Each ship designed to demonstrate our power, to intimidate our enemies. But your vessels," he gestured toward the Guardian, "they fight with purpose beyond victory." "You've begun to understand," Min-Ho said softly. "Look at the Guardian. What do you see?" The Dominion diplomats turned to study the human warship. Its angular hull was functional rather than decorative, its weapons carefully placed for maximum coverage rather than visual impact. "We see efficiency," Valen's assistant offered, "but also something more." Min-Ho stood and walked to the window. "Every human ship tells a story. The Guardian, for instance, was named after ancient protectors who defended the innocent. Its crew doesn't just operate the ship, they live up to its name." "We did not understand this at first," Valen acknowledged. "Your ships don't just carry weapons, they carry your history, your determination, your will to protect. And that's why we're here today." Min-Ho turned back to the table. "Not to negotiate a surrender, but to find a path forward. To turn former enemies into allies who understand each other." He activated a holographic display, showing various human ships working alongside alien vessels. "Since our conflicts began, 17 species have requested human protection. Not because our ships are the most powerful, but because they know what we stand for." The Dominion diplomats watched the images, seeing human vessels escorting refugee ships, defending mining colonies, and standing guard over peaceful worlds. "Your ships are feared," Valen noted, "but not in the way we intended our own to be feared. The galaxy fears them because they never break, never abandon their duty, never stop protecting what they value." Minho nodded, pleased at their growing understanding. "And that's why this peace will work. Because now you understand that humans don't seek war. We prepare for it so we can prevent it." He brought up new holographic images, these showing proposed joint defense initiatives between human and Dominion forces. "Your technology combined with our philosophy could create something unprecedented, a force that truly protects galactic peace." The Dominion representatives studied the proposals with growing interest. Outside, the Guardian adjusted its position slightly, maintaining its protective watch over the peace proceedings. "There is one more thing we wish to understand," Valen said carefully. "Why did you choose this ship, the Guardian, for these talks?" Minho smiled. "Because its name represents what we hope to build together. Not conquerors or warriors, but guardians of peace." The meeting continued for hours, but its success was already assured. The Dominion had finally understood what made human ships different. They weren't just weapons of war, but embodiments of humanity's highest principles. As the diplomats worked through the details of their new alliance, the Guardian remained at its post, a silent testament to the truth that real strength lies not in the ability to destroy, but in the willingness to protect. The peace that followed would reshape the galaxy as former enemies learned to work together, protecting the weak and maintaining order. And human ships, once feared as harbingers of destruction, became known as guardians of this new era of understanding. Professor Hai-Jin Park sat in her study at the Galactic University of History, surrounded by glowing displays showing battle records, personal accounts, and diplomatic exchanges. After 5 years of research, she was finally adding the last words to her comprehensive history of humanity's emergence as a galactic power. Through her window, she could see students from 24 species walking together across the campus grounds. Above them, a human warship, the UES Protector, maintained its endless patrol, watching over the next generation of scholars. "Computer, final entry," she spoke clearly, her hands resting on her desk. The recording system activated, ready to capture her concluding thoughts. "The transformation of human warships from objects of terror to symbols of hope marks one of the most significant shifts in galactic history," she began. "What started with the single action of the UES Thunderchild defending the Koran people grew into something no one could have predicted." She brought up footage from that first historic battle, watching again as Captain Jin-Woo Park made the decision that would change everything. Next to it, she played clips from the Battle of Proxima and the last stand of the Leonidas. "At first, other species thought humans were just another aggressive race," she continued. "They saw our ships and assumed we were conquerors. It took time for them to understand that human vessels were built not to dominate, but to endure, to stand between the innocent and those who would harm them." A message notification flashed on her screen. More witness accounts had arrived, these from children who had grown up in the decades since the conflicts. They spoke of human ships not with fear, but with reverence. "The term Deathbringer evolved," she noted, "from a name whispered in fear to one spoken with respect. These ships brought death not to the innocent, but to those who threatened peace. They became known as the shields of the weak, the protectors of the defenseless." She pulled up statistics showing how galactic conflicts had decreased since human ships began their patrols. Piracy was down, civilian casualties in disputes had dropped dramatically, and more species were joining the mutual defense pacts. "Humanity's greatest strength," she wrote, "was never in their weapons or technology. Other species had more advanced shields, more powerful weapons, more sophisticated systems. What set humans apart was their spirit, their unwavering dedication to protecting others, even at the cost of their own lives." Through her window, she watched as the Protector was joined by ships of former enemy races, now allies in joint patrol missions. The sight would have been unthinkable just years ago. The mysterious nature of human strength, she continued, puzzled the galaxy's greatest minds until they realized a simple truth. Humans built their ships as extensions of their highest ideals. Every vessel carried not just weapons and crew, but the weight of humanity's moral convictions. She included footage from the peace negotiations, showing how former enemies came to understand and eventually embrace human principles of protection and sacrifice. The legacy of these events, she wrote, extends far beyond military history. Human ships became teachers, showing the galaxy a different way of thinking about power and responsibility. Their example inspired other species to reassess their own approaches to warfare and defense. A group of young cadets walked past her window, wearing the mixed uniforms of the new Joint Defense Force. Humans trained alongside former enemies, sharing not just tactical knowledge, but philosophical principles. Perhaps most remarkably, she added, this transformation occurred without humans ever compromising their principles. They never sought to conquer, never demanded submission. They simply stood firm in their commitment to protect, and let their actions speak for themselves. As she neared the end of her work, Professor Park thought about how to summarize humanity's impact on galactic society. The answer came as she watched the Protector execute a perfect patrol turn, its movements precise yet graceful. In the end, she concluded, human warships taught the galaxy that true strength lies not in the ability to destroy, but in the willingness to protect. They showed us that the most powerful force in the universe is not technology or weapons, but the unwavering spirit of those who stand between the innocent and harm. She added one final passage. These ships, once feared as harbingers of death, have become beacons of hope. They remind us that in the darkest moments, someone will always stand ready to defend those who cannot defend themselves. This is their legacy, and it will endure as long as ships sail among the stars. As Professor Park finished her history, she looked again at the Protector patrolling overhead. The ship's name, like all human vessels, was not just a label but a promise, a commitment to the highest principles of protection and service. The galaxy had finally understood the truth about human warships. They were Deathbringers not because they sought destruction, but because they would unflinchingly face death to safeguard the innocent. This understanding had ushered in a new era of peace and cooperation, built on the foundation of humanity's unwavering spirit.